I just apologize, that's what's going to happen this evening. And the topic that I want to talk about is called the chapters of our lives. Honestly, since I arrived in America, it's been now 5 or 6 days. I was first in Denver. Yesterday I came to Miami. I have, as I always do, I love reconnecting to students. I have been hearing stories of sadness. Basically, people load on me the tzaras that they're going through. I'm not saying it's only tzaras, Baruch Hashem, a lot of nachas as well, a lot of beautiful stories, but overwhelmingly, when people want to connect to me, it's because they have challenges. Today, I was on the phone for a while with a young lady who is just got married this year, and she's going through really horrific teething problems in our Shana Rishona. And whatever, we were talking through, strategizing what we should do. Today, I also spoke to another lady who is ridiculously good for a shidduch. I mean, she's such a catch. Whoever marries her is a very lucky young man. And she's turning 27. And the stress that comes with that, I don't have to tell you. 2 days ago in Denver, I gave a parenting class. When I gave a parenting class, at the end I take questions. And it's normally the South Africans that say, Rabbi, can I talk to you privately? So here we go. And they tell us all the problems that they're going through, raising their children. And I have to give them an answer. So obviously, as an educator, each person deserves their own answer. I try very, very hard not to standardize answers, but today I'm going to give over a standardized answer, which works for most people, most of the time. Again, most people, most of the time. Do not leave this room saying, Rabbi Nechunyah just doesn't get it, because I do understand that what I'm saying is only for most people, most of the time. And for those of you that have never heard this idea beforehand, it is a source of tremendous comfort. Are we sitting comfortably? So if you remember, I said I was going to talk about this tefillah that is totally irrelevant to everyone in front of me, because it's one of the first things that you skip. And that is the tefillah called Ana B'Koach. Ana B'Koach, the place that you would probably say it is if you go to shul on Friday night. Friday night, we sing 6 mizmorim, Kalabachi, I don't know what they do over here, whatever it may be. And then we sing L'Chadodi. But before we do L'Chadodi, there's this little tefillah called Ana B'Koach, this little Kabbalistic tefillah. I found out recently that the minhag in real Ashkenaz, meaning the minhag of Frankfurt, they skip it. We don't put this supercharged Kabbalistic tefillah into our davening. But the Arizal, who is the one that wrote L'Chadodi, says to say it. I have over here the quote, the Pri Charash in Simdon Aleph, Arizal Hayo and he adds, Benigun or Beneima. So all you Kalabachis out there, in NCSY as well, you guys have it right. You sing the Ana B'Koach, it is the right thing to do. The Arizal says it should be sung. I have over here the quote from the Zohar. The Zohar brings down in Tikkun Kaf Aleph, this tefillah is Keneged Shem Mem Beis. It corresponds to the 42-letter Name of Hashem. So if you actually have a look into your siddur, you'll see the Ana B'Koach has 42 words. And, quote, the Chibroi Hatana Nechunyah Ben HaKana. So this tefillah goes back to a man called Nechunyah Ben HaKana. He was one of the great Tanaim of the times of the Mishnah. And there's other information over here that is not so relevant, but I do want to say that the Rishonim bring this down, meaning way before the Arizal, you have the Rishonim that say that the Mem, Beis, Teves of the Tefillah of Rabbi Nechunyah Ben HaKana corresponds to the 22 letters of Hashem's name. And then, this is a quote from Rabbi Nechunyah Ben HaKana, who's one of the Rishonim. He says, V'hu Shem Hayetze Mipasuk Bereshis Bar Elokim. This is a name that comes out of the 7 words of the opening pasuk in the Torah. So I'm going to tell you right up front, studying Hashem's names is Kabbalah 101. You could ask Madonna or Ashton Kushner. Anyone that starts real advanced Kabbalistic studies knows that's what's called Shemos, the names of Hashem. This is where everything begins. By the way, that was British sarcasm. Again, I have to be careful, right? This is what I said is true. Okay, this is advanced Kabbalah. I just mentioned the name of 2 people, and I realized, no, it was a joke. They don't know anything about these things. Honestly, if you open up any Kabbalah Sefer, you'll see that the opening sections always talk about Shemos, of the names of Hashem. The names of Hashem are way out of our pay league, but sometimes we see that mainstream Torah talks about it, and we're going to see in a moment, I'm going to quote a Gemara in Kiddushin that talks about this name. For the purpose of this evening, we all know that Hashem created the world with which of his names? Yud, K, Vav, K. Right? Shema Yisrael Hashem, Yud, K, Vav, K. Hashem is the power of creation. Elokeinu is how he runs the world. But creation power is Yud, K, Vav, K. The Shem Mem Beis is an expansion of Yud, K, Vav, K. So, just like some of you have, you could be called, let's say, Yocheved, for example, but people call you Yochi. So Yochi is like, whatever, is this another Yocheved here? Okay, get to me, you're a doppelganger over here. So the idea is that Yud Kei Vav Kei is the source, is the shirish of the name, but the name expands into Yud Kei Vav Kei, and you can find it in the first pasuk of the Torah with the 7 words of Bereshis Bara. Now, this, by the way, says the Arizal, is why when you say Ana B'Koach, you just said God's name, and therefore, if you look in your siddur, straight afterwards, you see the words Baruch, Shem, Kavod, Malchuso, La'olam Va'ed. When do we say those words? So if you accidentally say Hashem's name, so we say Baruch Shem, meaning that we don't want to just casually say Hashem's name. Every time we say Hashem's name, we say Baruch Shem as if to say that we want to make sure this name is given the right respect, and therefore it is concluded with the words Baruch Shem. And the obvious question is why are we saying this on Friday night? Why are we saying at this junction after the 6th prakim of Kabbalah Shabbos? We say Ana B'Koach, and then we go into a resounding L'Chadaydi. But obviously, I did not come to talk about a little Tefilla on Friday night davening that I know most of you secretly do not say. When's the last time you said it? Okay, sorry for picking on you, but I know you don't. Okay, you're busy preparing things. It doesn't make any difference. It's there. It's there in other places in the siddur. It's not important. I want to talk about specifically when the 6 days of the week turns into Shabbos. That's the moment we say Ana B'Koach. I also want to understand a little bit more about what it means, a 42-letter name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And obviously, at some point, I want to get back to how this helps us with our lives, because I'm not just going to come and stand in front of you all the way from Yerushalayim to Miami, Florida, just to give you a Kabbalah class on Hashem's name of 42. There has to be a take-home that is really, really relevant to our lives. As you shall see, everything is going to fall into place. So let's begin at the beginning. I mentioned that the 42-letter name of Hashem is actually a Gemara. It's not just Kabbalistic sources, it's a Gemara. Gemara is just another way of saying that a lot of your kids learned this Gemara when they were 13. The Kiddushin is one of the Masechtas that teenage boys learn when they're very young. My grandson knows this by heart. Just showing off, okay? He knows all of Kiddushin Baal Peh and Shlomo. Okay, it's my daughter-in-law, by the way. Everyone, this is introducing to Noah Nissel, one of the most incredible additions to the Miami community. The point I want to make is that my grandson and Noah's nephew, he knows this Gemara. He knows exactly. I could start talking. He'll tell you which daf it is. This is what happens when you raise your kids in Yerushalayim. Could be they have it here as well. I don't know. But the point I want to make is that the Gemara says, and I quote, this is Gemara in Kiddushin 71a, Amar Rabbi Yehuda Amar Rav, Shem ben Arbaim b'shtayim Eisius, Ein Moisrim Oiso Elo. In other words, this name is a very powerful name. You don't just give it away. It's only given to people who have the following 6 qualities. 6 midos. Number 1, sanua. Number 2, anov. Anov is humility. Number 3, aimed b'chetzi yamav. You have to be at least halfway through your life. Sorry, we're there. Okay, this is the way it goes. 4, ein a koach, someone who is not prone to anger. 5, ein a mishtake, a person who does not get drunk. And 6, ve'ein a mamid al midosov. Just another way of saying someone who is in control, someone who you can trust with a secret, because if they get drunk, or if he's not mamid al midosov, he loses his temper, or he's a person that is reckless, then we cannot trust them with a hidden name. It has to be people that are trustworthy. And then the Gemara continues. anyone who keeps this holy name in tahara, in purity, he is beloved above, and he is, how do you say nechmad? How do you say nechmad in English? Pleasant? He's pleasant down here. So the idea is, the 42-letter name, somehow or other, makes you popular upstairs and popular downstairs. Ve'imosu mutal celebrios, he gets respect. V'neichel beis alamas. Once again, you see olam hazeh and olam haba, and the bottom line is, somehow or other, this 42-letter name is something that is an overarching name that is connected to the higher worlds and connected to the lower worlds. Rashi says, and I quote, Shem ben Shtayim ben Shtayim or ben Arbaim B'Shtayim, the 12-letter name and the 42-letter name, Loi Pirshulanu. We don't know what it is. This is Rashi speaking. The Rosh comes along at the back of the Gemara and says we have a tradition from the Gaonim what the 42-letter name is. I want you to know, I remember learning this when I was maybe 23 years old with my Rebbe, Rabbi Shapiro. And he casually said, Rashi says that he doesn't know what it is, he's just being modest. That's what he said. He obviously knew what it was. It doesn't make sense. The Rosh knew it, and Rashi did not know it. And I always think about that comment, because this is a moment when you see how much you need to have a Rebbe in your life. Because if you learn this Gemara, it's okay, Rashi says we don't know it. And my Rebbe, who obviously is coming with inside information, said, Rashi did know it, but this is his way of writing. He writes it in an expression of humility that we don't know what it is, but he knew what it was. Without a Rebbe, it would not make any sense whatsoever. The bottom line is that there is people, probably in our generation, who still has access to the knowledge of this secret name. For you and for me, all we have is this Tefilla called Ana B'Koach. Rabbi Nechunyah Ben HaKana, Rabbi Nechunyah Ben HaKana's Tefilla is all we have left from this 42-letter name. Okay, it gets worse. I have a quote in front of me from the Rashba. The Rashba, Rushem Ben Aderes of Barcelona, he says, be careful, do not read out the first letters of Ana B'Koach, because if you think there's 42 words, you're going to have 42 letters, and if you look at your article Siddur, it actually spells them out. So you have Ana B'Koach, Gedulas Yimincha, and you have Aleph Beis Gimel, Yud Tav Tzadi. These letters are written next to them. Do not read them out. Quote, because Elami, Baruch Shnir Shlei Nemr Dvarim, Ela B'Mishi Yadeh Seidoi, V'Yadeh Lechavin Ela Kedesh Pnima, Shehu Rai Mizalav. The bottom line is, the Rashba says, only people who are worthy may say these letters, and if you don't, he implies it could be dangerous for you. You are messing with fire. Do not say those letters unless you know what you're doing. So again, in Kabbalah, there's a thing called kavanos. Kavanos means that you say certain letters and you have higher thoughts, and with that you can fix the higher worlds. What is this really about? It's out of my pay. I don't really know. Honestly, I don't know. I know people that do know. My Rebbe, Rabbi Shapiro, for sure knew about kavanos, but it's a little bit out of our pay scale. What we need to know is that these things exist. That Hashem's name is a creative power. There's the 4-letter name, there's the 12-letter name, and tonight we're talking about the 42-letter name. At this point now, you're all thinking, Rabbi Nissel, no offense, we're tired. Okay, you have no idea how hard we work. We came all the way here to listen to you speak, and you're talking Kabbalah, you're talking about 40-letter names, and it's dangerous to say, don't worry. Okay, Rebbe Yochi is thinking, don't worry, I'm not going to be saying the 42-letter name. It's just not happening tonight. I'm just trying to stay awake because I actually work for a living. So the point I want to make is that this class is about to get really interesting. It really is about to get very interesting. I want to quote to you from Reb Tzadok HaKohen of Lublin. And then suddenly you're going to have the aha moment. Now I see where he's going with all this. And I quote, where is this Reb Tzadok? It's in Pri Tzadok, which is his commentary on Chumash, at the beginning of Parshas Matos. That's a clue. Because Parshas Matos talks about what? Chumash ladies, seminary graduates, Ma'ar girls, hello, okay? Parshas Matos and Masei talks about the 42, thank you very much, the 42 journeys in the wilderness. And Reb Tzadok comes along and he says two incredible pieces of information. The second one I'm going to leave as a surprise in a few moments' time. But the first thing he says when the Jews traveled through the Midbar, there were 42 stops, 42 masos, and each one of these masos, don't ask me what this means, Klal Yisrael was mechaven to one of the 42 letters. So the first stop would be the Aleph, the second the base, and so on and so forth, as we go through the words of Honor B'Koach. Now, this is all beautiful, but what does it actually mean for us? So I told you that the Tzaddik HaKohen of Lublin has a second commentary to make about the 42 chapters. I just want to give you a little piece of information. Honestly, I realize now how complicated this class could be if I give you all the information I have in front of me. The number 42 appears in many, many different places. Each time that it appears, I can show you how it connects to the 42 letters of Hashem. I have over here 3 examples. I'm just going to give you one. One of them is the 42 children that were eaten by the bears in the story of Elisha the Navi. It's a horrible, horrible story. There were a bunch of kids. Kids could have been adult kids, but what we call ruffians that cursed out Elisha. And then, this is Malachim Perek Beis, Perek Beis, Pasuk Kaf Gimel Kaf Daled. There's a whole little story over there about how bears ate 42 children. Who are these 42 children? It's out of the scope of this evening. Another example is that Balak brings 42 karbanos in Parshas Balak. All of these things are connected. The third thing, which I will mention, is that there are 42 Ari Miklat. There are 42 cities of refuge. Comes along the Shem Shmuel, and he says the following statement, and I quote. He says, a person who has accidentally murdered someone, Nitla mimena hachiyas tekdusha, he has lost a certain vitality of holiness. He says, these 42 Ari Miklat, and this is already a clue to everything we're going to be learning over the next 10-15 minutes. This is the journey back home. This is the journey back home to be able to find your redemption is connected to these 42 Ari Miklat. And now, finally, I can get to the main part of my class, and the lenses of Friday night is going to be the focus, but we're going to see in a moment that there's a big surprise coming up in a couple of minutes' time. So hold on, everybody. What is Friday night all about? So you're all thinking, okay, I know Rebbe and Jennifer is thinking, Friday night means the guests are coming soon. That's it. Okay, you're hosting, it's whatever it is. I happen to know in my house that this moment when I'm sitting on a bekoach, my wife is sitting on her the sofa, and she's probably asleep. I have memories of my mother-in-law in Memphis, Shalom, that would do exactly the same thing, but she at least would fall asleep with a chumash in her hand. The bottom line is, it's a transition period between the craziness of the 6 days of the week. The craziness climaxes on Friday. It really does. Friday is in most Jewish homes, it's a disaster zone. When I'm just speaking now with this young lady who was going through Shalom Bayis issues, I did point out to her, what would happen if someone just judged you by the way you behaved 3 hours before Shabbos came in? That everyone would think you're a freak, you're a maniac, and it's all they see of you those 3 hours, when especially you have a lot of guests and you're running late and everything has to go, whatever it is. I'm telling you, if you're a typical Yidna, those 3 hours is pandemonium. But that's the climax until he goes there, everything is crazy, and then suddenly still, and then suddenly everything stops. Afterwards you're hosting. But it's a different type of a vibe. Okay, it's where Shabbos is Shabbos, everything comes down a little bit and everything becomes elevated. But what the Arizal gave us was a gift. He gave us a link between the 6 days of the week and Shabbos to teach us the following thing. The 6 days of the week and Shabbos are not two separate entities. The idea of Shabbos is that the goal of our lives is to take everything we do in the journey of our lives and elevate it. Let me say that slowly with a little bit more passion. Kisheishis Yamim Asa Hashem Shemayim V'Sa'aretz. The Rashba says, HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world Kisheishis Yamim, in what's called a six-folded expression of weekdays. There's 6 days. Each day has its own unique koach. Actually, if I had more time, which I don't, the 6 days correspond to the 6 directions. The 6 directions is space, the 6 days is time. They actually do have a parallel. What's called north, south, east, west, and up and down breaks down to Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. It goes in pairs. Sunday goes with Wednesday, Monday goes with Thursday, Tuesday goes with Friday. I'm not going to go exactly how it goes through because, well, I'm giving you way too much information. But all journeys of life are in 6s. All journeys of life are in 6s. All journeys must be anchored in the goal. All journeys must take us to the place that we need to go, which in the space and time is the number 7. In time it's called Shabbos, and in space it's called the Beis Hamikdash. They are both 2 different ways of expressing the same thing. The journey of life, which breaks down into 6s, ki sheishes yomim. The word sheishes yomim does not mean in 6 days. Ki sheishes yomim, not b'sheishes. Ki sheishes yomim, a 6th direction of space and a 6th direction of time, brings us always to Shabbos. Rabbi Shapiro points out that every single place in Chumash you see the word Shabbos, every single place, it's always preceded with 6 days thou shalt work. And the idea is that Shabbos is not just a day of rest. Shabbos is a day of rest that comes in a very healthy, organic way out of 6 days of working. You go through the journey and then you anchor it into this world called Shabbos. So again, this is going to be a metaphor. Just hang on, everybody. The 6 days of the week is a journey that we go through every 7 days, 6 days of the week, and then we elevate it to Shabbos. That elevation, the connection from the 6 days to Shabbos, the Arizal in Tzfat gave us a gift called Kabbalah Shabbos. Kabbalah Shabbos is a relatively recent addition to our Siddur. It's a newcomer. It's only about 500 years old. You think about it, Shemona Esrei is over 2,000 years old. All these tefillas are ancient. We have something from the Arizal, and he says, I'm going to show you a journey that's going to help you anchor 6 days into something higher called the world of Shabbos. What I want to share with you is that Ana B'Koach is the key to making it work. Ana B'Koach is the 42 letters of Hashem's name, is the key to making it work. What does that mean? Each day of the week, how on earth do we make it special? The answer is each day of the week, we try and elevate each day. So every morning you wake up, you look at your hands, and you say, Al Natila Sadayim. The Svarim bring down, Kadosh Baruch Hu, I want this day to be elevated. I want this day to have an extra addition to everything I do from morning to night that is always anchored into something higher. If you're building a Jewish home, so what you're doing is different from the non-Jewish neighbor next to you. You're washing dishes, she's washing dishes, but when you wash dishes, you actually have a Mikdash Ma'at in process. You have a miniature of the Beis Hamikdash, which is happening in a dynamic way. So everything you're doing in your home is Natila Sadam. You're trying to elevate it, which means each day also has 6 directions, but there's a 7th one that says it's special. The number 7 always gives it that Shabbos dimension. Within each day of the week, it has a spiritual dimension itself. So if you have your Sunday right, and you did everything you should, so Sunday has its own 6 directions, but it has a 7th that says, I've elevated everything I do. I'm so sorry that 10 to 9 in the evening to make you do some math. But if each day has 6 directions and the 7th one to anchor it, and there's 6 days of a week, what is 6 times 7? Can we do this, ladies? It's 42. Translation into simple English. 42 is not just a random number. Those of you who are my age, you may know that should I even mention this in the shul? The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Universe. Somebody asked, it's a science fiction novel. Somebody asked, it was a team of aliens was asked to figure out what was the secret of the universe. It was written by a non-Jewish Brit. You know what I'm talking about? It's crazy. Okay, so, and in the book they spent, I think, like 100 years working on what is the secret of the universe. And in the end, when they finally came out with the answer from the computer, the answer was 42. So if you ask any scientific geek who's over 60, what is the secret of the universe, they'll tell you 42, and that's a quote from a non-Jewish source. Happens to be that the Arizal got there first, so did the Gemara in Kiddushin. that 42 is the expansion of the journey of life into Kedusha. Each day is 6 plus a 7th, multiplied by 6 means 42. Then we take the whole 6 days and we anchor it into Shabbos. That's where Name of KOACH comes in. So this, esteemed ladies, is a little bit crazy because there's something much deeper going on behind the scenes. Here we go over here. Let me read to you from the Shulchan Aruch. He says, every Friday night, I'm quoting over you from the Orach Chaim, Reish Samach Gimel, Yilbash Begadim Hanoim, you should put on your fine clothing, this is for the menfolk, the Yismach B'Bias Shabbos, Ki Yotzi L'Kras Melech. So you go out and you greet the king in this case is Shabbos Malchusa. And then he adds, Ki Yotzi L'Kras Chosn B'Kala. By the way, this is the minhag, that in some chuppahs you see the chosn goes out and brings in the kala. This is another way of saying that the 42 dimensions of the week have to be brought in to the world of Shabbos. Once again, I just already I quoted to you for over here, and now I finally want to say no. I'm not going to say yet the punchline. I've got a few more minutes over here. Tzedakah Cohen says that the 6 days of the week corresponds to what? Who knows what I'm about to say? The 6,000 years of history. Well, he didn't say this first. The Ramban in Chumash already goes through into great detail how each of the 6 days corresponds to a millennia. I once heard a shiur from Rabbi Shapiro, which I did not understand, where he spoke about the Elef HaChamishi, which corresponds to the creation of the fish in the water. The 5th day of creation corresponds to, from the word, the year 5,000, the year 4,000 to the year 5,000. 4,000 to 5,000. During that period of history, the Jewish people went through what he said to us, which I don't really understand, historically, was the hardest part of Golus. And because, whatever, this is completely not our topic, he says the developments of the last 1,000 years had the advantage that everyone felt that we were getting closer to Shabbos, so therefore we were able to deal with the difficulties of the exile during the Holocaust. So again, the fact that the Holocaust was so close to the year 6,000 meant that all the Gedolim and Tzaddikim that went through it, one of the things that kept them going was the knowledge that Mashiach is coming closer. Rabbi Asher Weiss's father said that the only time that he saw the Kloisenberger Rebbe cry was at the end of the Holocaust, the end of World War II, when the American soldiers came along and they redeemed him. And he started crying because he had kept going. Kloisenberger was in Auschwitz and he was sent to was on the marches, all kinds of terrible. He lost his whole family, everything he could possibly lose. And he kept on saying the whole time that this is going to be worth it, because the person who's going to redeem us is going to be the Melech Mashiach. He was convinced that World War II could only end with the coming of the Mashiach. And he saw the American soldiers, and that was when he lost it, when he broke down. But one thing is for sure, we're getting close, okay? We're at the end. This is 5, 7, 8, 3. This means in your homes where pandemonium is going on. This is when you're screaming at the kids, and the kids are screaming at their siblings because they want to get into the shower, and whatever it is, everyone is talking. There's so much going on because Shabbos is about to come. That's where we're holding in history. Says the Holy Reb Tzedakah Cohen that 6,000 years of history, when it happens, Mashiach comes, we'll look back, we're going to find out. Can you guess what I'm about to say? How many chapters are there in history? Well, 42. This is what he says. This world is a journey, and the journey of our lives is going to be broken down, as it should do, into 42 parts. The 6,000 years of history has got 42 chapters. One day, Mashiach comes, we're going to rewrite the history books. It's going to have 42 chapters. And finally, I get to the point of my class. I have a few extra minutes. I don't have to finish at 9. I have to get to the this is why I'm excited to give this share. Let's go over what we've said so far. The 6 days of the week, 6,000 years of history correspond to each other. The 42 chapters of what's called the Jewish people in the Midbar corresponds to the 42 parts of a week, which corresponds to the 42 parts of the 6,000 years. But there's one thing that I missed out, and this is where I'm asking you. I don't care how tired you are. This is the bit where you have to give me full focus, because this is something you must hear, because this is the only part of the Shiur that's really, really, really Lamaisa. Says Reb Tzadok, it's not just the 42 in 6,000 years. It's not just 42 in the 6 days of the week. It's not just 42 of the Jews in the Midbar. It's also the 42 in your own personal life. Everybody has 42 chapters in their lives. This is what Reb Tzadok writes. So this, when I saw this for me was a major recalculate. Last month, I saw the Sefer Piyyut. I was actually with Moshe, who had his kever in Bulgaria in the summer, last summer. The chashivas to say Ana B'Koach was someone before he dies. Ana B'Koach is the 42 names of Hashem. You are about to go through a journey to transfer from your life into the goal of life, which is the Olam HaNeshamas and eventually Olam Haba. So, what does this mean for us, Lamaisa? How does this boil down, Lamaisa? I want to share with you something that's very important for me. The truth of the matter is that it actually works out very well, because we just had Parshas B'Shalach. At the end of Parshas B'Shalach, we find one of the chapters of the journeys of Klal Yisrael going through the Midbar. I want to read it to you. Okay, so you should just have it in the full thing. It says, Vayavohu, and they came to Marasa. They came to one of the 42 parts of their journey, a place called Marasa. Why is it called Marasa? So the pasuk says, Lo yachal lishtes mayim, they couldn't drink water. Mimara, because kimarim, the waters were all bitter. Al kin karashmo mara. They called it Mara, or was always called Mara, because this was a very, very bitter place. Everything about it was bitter. And this is one of the masos. So I saw this with Rabbi Biederman, but it's brought down in the Hasidic Sfarim that people go through chapters in their lives called Mara, and called bitterness. I mentioned to you some examples, but every single person in this room could give me a dozen more of people that you love that are going through what's called Mara. It's a chapter in their lives. What happened to that chapter called Mara? The pasuk itself says, this is the continuation of the pasuk, and I quote to you, Vayirei Hashem eitz. Hashem showed Klal Yisrael a tree. Vayashech el. This tree was thrown into the water. Vayimtiku hamayim. And suddenly they found out that the waters were sweet. You could say it was a chemical reaction. You could say whatever you want. I have over here a nurse after whatever. You're more than a nurse. What's it called? PA. A PA. Sorry if I apologize. Okay, there we go. Yeah, but whatever. You could say it's a chemical reaction. No, it's not what we say. The word eitz, which is a tree, is symbolic of seeing what is in front of you through the lenses of Torah. It's the Eitz Chaim. This is something that we have to do a recalculate. People go through bitter chapters in their lives, and they don't realize that this chapter is really part of a mosaic that Kodesh Baruch Hu has to paint. If you think about it, some of you have paintings, I don't know, behind me. Here, you see over here, you see paintings. Paintings need different colors. Some of your children or grandchildren, they make a painting by what's called colors by numbers. It's the way it goes. So they're given 42 crayons, and each one is a different color, and then together they put it together, and suddenly you have a Rembrandt. Problem is that one of those crayons is always going to be black. En malasot. Schneider, are you with me? One of them has to be black. This is the way it goes. So this is like, I painted black, okay? This sounds like a song from the olden days. But the point is that the color black, when you go through it, you cannot possibly see how it fits in with all the other colors, because all you feel is the darkness. When you are an older single, or you are going through the challenges of Shana Rishona, or you're going through the challenges of raising your kids, so you're inside the darkness and you cannot see beyond. Every Friday night, we say Ana B'Koach to remind ourselves that chapters of our lives have ends. And I was very careful with my words at the beginning of the class. I said this is true for most people most of the time. Hashem has other ways that He runs this world, but this is the default. Your life goes through chapters. And every single one of you is probably aware that you've gone through chapters because you've gone through dark moments of your life. And Kate Nasla L'Cheshech, as we saw with Yosef Atzadik, that suddenly the darkness of his prison overnight turned over and he became a king. I want to share with you something a little bit personal. Some of you are aware that my wife Debbie is from Memphis. Some of you know Debbie very well. And one of the darkest moments of her life was when she lost her brother in a car accident in Ner Yisrael. How old is David? At 2 years. Well, so about 36 years ago. That's when it happened. Noah's husband, which is my son, is named after David Brown of Memphis. I was extremely close to him. I was his best friend and also a bit of a mentor. And we were chavrusas back there in Mishkan Torah back in the day. Those of you that know my full story, so you'll know that I've experienced a lot of premature deaths in my life. It's like our thing. Hopefully it's come to an end. But whatever, we've gone through a lot of stuff. My parents, my in-laws were devastated, and they never really recovered. My father was a Zayin Gesundheit Stark, who's now living in Baltimore, he's 88, but my mother-in-law never fully recovered at all, and she died young. She died young, and it was a terrible situation. When I went to my Rebbe to discuss this with him, I had a lot of things that was going through my mind. I was a young Avrech at the time, and one of the things that was going through my mind was the world of fear. And it was like, how much death, how much sorrow is going a person go through? There's always a limited amount of death. I was literally afraid to go into a car at that point then in my life. It's the second car crash. My mother died in a car crash as well, so I don't know, I had enough. So he told me that I should start saying a tefillah called Tehillim Tzadi Aleph. It goes back to the Chazon Ish. Those of you have my little Tefillah Derech Mustafa Yisrael, so you remember those little pamphlets. They came out soon afterwards, and that's why I put Perek Tzadi Aleph at the back. Because my Rebbe told me, if you frequently say Perek Tzadi Aleph, you don't have to worry about travel. The travel is always dangerous, but this is called a Shiur. I found last week, now I just want to tell you something, again, personal, that since I broke my arm last year, there's a bone sticking out over here, I started saying a lot of Tehillim. I say 10 prakim a day on the recommendation of Reb Chaim Kanievsky. And I recently saw, really just 2 weeks ago, for the first time, something incredible. You all know Tefillim Tzadi Aleph. You all know Yoshi B'Seise Elyon B'Tzel Sada Yisono. We actually say this when we accompany a dead person on his last journey before being buried. It's a very, very powerful tefillah. It's called the Shiur Shel Pagoyim, the song that protects you from dangers of travel. At least in this context of what it is. Listen to what I saw. This is a quote from the Arizal. The Arizal says the following thing: Ki malachav yitzav, right? Hakadosh Baruch Hu is going to command his angels to protect you. Says the Arizal, and the Arizal doesn't have to make sense. He's the Arizal, he can do what he wants. He makes the big box, he's the head of modern Kabbalah. He says the following thing: Ki malachav yitzaveh lach. Look at the last 4 letters. Ki is a yud, malachav is a vav, yitzaveh is a hey, lach is a chaf. Together, he says, adds up to 41, plus the whole pasuk together is 42. This is what he writes over here. And he says, L'shmarcha b'chol drachecha, the number 42 will protect you on your journeys. That's what he writes. And then he adds, he says, you break it down to the first 2 letters, Yud and Vav, is 16. So he says, in the higher worlds, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has what's called the Chayas HaKadosh. There's 4 of them. Each one of them has 4 heads. So there's 16 protectors that we have in heaven. That corresponds to the Yud and the Vav. And then the next word is Heichaf. Hach means to hit. They will fight your enemies on your behalf. In other words, you have a protector out there that's going to help you through your journey. There's someone out there that's taking care of you. It's funny because I don't know if you know what's going on with teenage kids today, but in SHabbos, when I spoke to them in NCSY, these are public school kids, I wanted to use the language of what they're listening to. You don't have to know this, but the kids are watching on Netflix Wednesday Addams. I don't know if it means anything to you, but okay, so you obviously know what I'm talking about. Wednesday Addams is protected by a hand called thing. And I explained to my students that thing is really HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Obviously not, it's just a show. But the thing, this hand always comes and protects her. Whenever things look like things could not get worse, suddenly this hand appears and somehow gives her a layer of protection. So the kids love that. Okay, they always wanted to know how Hashem looks like. Now they know it's thing, right? Thing is, it's just a joke. Don't take this, it's just a hand. It's the Yod HaChazaka, it's the hand, the outstretched hand. In reality, every single one of us, on a serious note, has to know that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is out there protecting us. We go on this journey that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is protecting us. I went through a chapter of my life called the chapter of losing my beloved brother-in-law. It was a very hard chapter. But the next chapter of my life is that I had to take care of my in-laws. And my wife and I eventually moved to Memphis. And it was in Memphis that I discovered two things about myself. Number one is that I enjoy teaching. I never really thought that teaching would be my career. And the second thing is that the kids liked me, which was like shocking for me. I didn't understand why, but the bottom line is that my career kicked off in Memphis, Tennessee, and the only reason I went to Memphis, literally go to the end of the world and make a left, the reason I'm sorry, that Rebbe Samerfil, but the only reason why I went there is because I went through a chapter of tragedy, and the next chapter was the chapter of self-discovery, of finding out what I was supposed to do with my life. I'm looking over here at my daughter-in-law Noah, and she spent a year in Memphis to be there with her husband and her beautiful children, to be there for my father-in-law, and that's the only reason why you're here now. Think about it. If you would not have gone to Memphis, you'd still be in Elad. Probably much happier, but let's not think about that. The point is that you're here because Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted to do a chesed, so there was a chapter in your life called Memphis, and now there's a chapter in your life called Miami. That's just the way these things go. I'm not finished yet. I just want to make a summary of what I've said so far. I'm using the 42 steps in the 6 days of the week, and the 42 steps in the 6,000 years of history, and the 42 steps of Klal Yisrael in the Midbar as a way of understanding of how our life works. Our life goes through Mara, goes through bitterness, and then there's another chapter in our life. Whenever you go through a chapter called bitterness, know that Al Pi Derech HaTeva, this is just a chapter in your life, there's going to be another one. Almost always that way. I told this young lady today who's going through Shana Rishona, in her particular case, I see the marriage working out very, very well. I see it as what I call teething problems. Sometimes it's whatever, I don't know what's going on. But here, the problems that she was saying are like teething problems. It's difficult at the beginning. I said, what you're going through is very, very common. I said, you're going to have an amazing marriage, but you need to get past this chapter in life. Those who have difficulty in raising your teens, don't worry. Somewhere in their late 20s, they become normal. Don't listen, okay? Bez Hashem Yisbach, this wonderful lady that I spoke to today, whoever finds her is a lucky man. And then I'm going to be telling her under the chuppah, don't forget to look out for all your other single friends. Because there's a custom that all the singles, when they get married, they say they just do catch up, and they forget all their single friends. So this is, to quote from a famous British singer, this is the story of our lives. It has chapters, okay? Everything we have has chapters in our lives, and we have to know that the dark chapters come to an end. That I'm not finished yet. I have one more thing to say. I'm so sorry. I have one more thing to say, and this is so, so important what I'm about to tell you now. If I would end the class now, you would all think the following thing. You would think that chapters are like chapters in a book. Or Hashem Yiracheh, but I'm talking to the crowd, okay, episodes of Netflix. This is what you might think over there. And then, every so often you move on to a new season. No. Senora, senoritas, you are mistaken. That is not what happens over here. This is not what's going on over here. And this I heard from my Rebbe Moshe Shapiro. What I'm about to tell you now is my conclusion, and it's very deep. The Vilna Gaon makes the following observation. I'm just quoting to you. He says, do you remember how we discussed that how the 42 letters of Hashem is the Aleph of, Ana, B'Koach is the base, Gedulas, Yemincha, Yud, it's those letters. So you have Aleph Beis Gimel, Yud Tov Tzadi, Ana B'Kagli Yemincha Tati Tzurura. It's the first pasuk. That's Keneged Chesed. That's the first day of the week. That's Keneged Sunday. That is, says the Vilna Gaon, Gematria 506. So you're all thinking, who cares? What's 506? Says the Vilna Gaon, Tefilla, Tov Vav Lion Ein is a worm. So now it's really not interesting. Okay, it's Gematria worm, but it gets worse. The last pasuk is Shin Tav Vav Tzadi Yotov is 906. Says the Gra, it's Tilas, which is also a worm. So the Vilna Gaon tells us it begins and ends with worms. Now, some of you know that I sing this to my grandchildren. Nobody likes me, everybody hates me. I'm going out to eat worms. Whatever. We'll stop right there. The worm song. Most of you do not like to think about worms. Most of you, the word worms triggers about terrible things that happens on Tu B'Shvat when you dare to buy figs or whatever it is that you're out there trying to do. But I want to tell you something amazing about worms, and with this I'm going to end. My Rabbi Shapir told us, and I don't care if you are a biologist and you're going to disagree with what I'm about to say, this is a concept that the nature of worms under the ground have to travel. How do they travel if you're inside dirt? How do the worms get through? So they have a system that they can take earth into their mouths, pass it through their system, and it comes out the other end, and that propels them the next inch forward. It's pretty cool. Says my Rebbe, explaining the words of the Gra, that the 42 chapters of our lives, a Jew does not travel with their feet, a Jew does not travel like a Netflix episode, a Jew travels with his and her mouth, which means what changes is what comes out of your mouth. The 42 chapters are 40 different ways that we talk. And what I want to share with you is that these chapters are really chapters that are going on inside of us. That's why it's not so clear. I said beforehand, and we left Elad and we came to Memphis, and we left Memphis and we came to Miami. That's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about something much deeper that goes on. Every single person in this room, I'm giving you a command from Yerushalayim or HaKadosh. If I could bring my Rebbe back to life, if I could bring the Vilna Gaon back to life, this is the message they want me to leave you with. You are obligated to discover the next chapter of your life, because you are obligated to rediscover the power of your mouth. Meaning, you have to always try and upgrade the way you talk to Kodesh Baruch Hu. When you go through the dark chapters, it's very easy. Tefilla based tzara. But your mouth, which is used for Torah, and your mouth, which is used for Tefilla, and in your cases, everyone over here, your mouth, which is also used for Chesed, all the great things you do with your mouth, cannot be the same. You have to go through chapters, and each chapter has to try and be an upgrade from what you had before. Sometimes you need to not just upgrade, is to redo the whole operating system. I spoke on Shabbos morning in Denver to Balabatim. I said, you're here to watch the teens. How pathetic is that? I said it much nicer. Why are you watching the teens? Why are you not inspired and seeing these kids are changing? Why are you always the same? Why is it on your 40th birthday, you're exactly the same person as you are on your 30th birthday? Because they don't know how to reinvent their mouths. This is something that is not acceptable. People of your level, people who are holding where you are, if you came to hear a class called Ana B'Koach, that means that you're raising history at a higher level. It means that you need to upgrade what comes out of your mouth. I had my personal upgrade when I broke my arm. I know that for a fact when I discovered Tehillim in a deep, meaningful way for the first time. When you're saying 10 prakim of Tehillim a day, and I'm the kind of person that can't just say Tehillim, I have to look at the words and understand what I'm saying. So it revolutionized my life. I have to thank Reb Chaim Kanievsky for that. There's so many different ways that you can do it. You are obligated to walk out of this room and say, my take home is that I need to find the next chapter in the 42 steps in my life. I need to sometimes leave Mara and go on to the next place, or I have to figure out how to get to some kind of a revolution in the way that I travel, the way that I'm moving from place to place. All that's left for me to do from Yerushalayim or HaKadosh is to give you a bracha. I want to give you a bracha from the Oyek Halev. Thank you again for listening to me. As you can see, I'm exhausted beyond belief. And it's been a pleasure for me, really an honor for me. And I want to give you Baruch Shai that you find the inner ability to have a revolution in the Koach HaDibur, in the way you travel through this world. And your next chapter, and every chapter of your life should never be more, it should just be more and more beautiful until we get to the final, beyond 42, when we break the goyal from Herav Yameinu. Thank you so much for listening.